Ship medic Emily Carter on the USS Gerald Ford was one of the most ordinary medical personnel. For 3 years, routine work, simple treatments, didn't talk much to anyone. But when the enemy torpedo hit the ship and severely wounded came in, Emily's sudden transformation and saying trauma team leader Carter here shook the entire ship. Before we dive into this incredible story of hidden medical expertise and naval heroism, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be shared, hit that subscribe button. These are the tales that remind us lifesavers often hide in the most unexpected places. The USS Gerald Ford stood as the most advanced aircraft carrier in the United States Navy, its nuclear-powered hull stretching over 1,100 feet through the waters of the Persian Gulf, where it served as the flagship for carrier strike group operations that projected American naval power throughout one of the world's most strategically important and politically volatile regions. The Ford's mission encompassed not just aircraft operations, but also the complex medical support required to maintain the health and combat readiness of over 5,000 sailors, Marines, and aircrew who operated the sophisticated systems that made the carrier one of the most powerful military assets in the world. The ship's medical department was responsible for everything from routine healthcare and preventive medicine to emergency trauma care and surgical procedures that might be needed during combat operations. The medical facilities aboard the Ford represented some of the most advanced healthcare capabilities available on any naval vessel, including multiple operating rooms, intensive care units, diagnostic equipment, and specialized treatment areas that could handle virtually any medical emergency that might arise during extended deployments in hostile waters where evacuation to shore-based medical facilities might not be possible. Among the medical personnel serving aboard the Ford was Lieutenant Emily Carter, a 33-year-old woman who had been assigned to the ship's medical department for the past 3 years as a general medical officer responsible for routine healthcare services, preventive medicine, and basic medical support for crew members who required treatment for common illnesses and minor injuries that were typical aboard naval vessels. To her colleagues in the medical department and the sailors who received healthcare services from her, Emily appeared to be exactly what her assignment suggested, a competent general practitioner with solid medical training who provided reliable healthcare services while maintaining the professional demeanor and clinical competence expected of naval medical officers. Emily's approach to medical practice was methodical and thorough in ways that distinguished her from other general medical officers who might provide routine care without demonstrating particular expertise in specialized medical procedures or advanced clinical techniques. She showed exceptional diagnostic skills, maintained meticulous medical records, and demonstrated knowledge of trauma medicine and emergency procedures that seemed to go beyond what her apparent role would require. Her professional manner was also somewhat reserved compared to other medical personnel who might engage in casual conversation with patients and colleagues during routine medical activities. Emily maintained appropriate clinical relationships while avoiding unnecessary personal interaction that might compromise professional boundaries or reveal information about her background and training that could affect her cover identity. What her medical colleagues and the crew members she treated didn't know was that Emily's assignment as a general medical officer was not a routine naval medical posting, but rather a carefully constructed cover identity that concealed her true medical background and the real reason she had been placed aboard one of the Navy's most important and strategically valuable vessels. Emily Carter was not just a naval medical officer with general practice training. She was Commander Emily Carter, a board-certified trauma surgeon with 15 years of experience in combat medicine, battlefield surgery, and emergency medical procedures that had taken her to the most dangerous combat zones in Iraq, Afghanistan, and classified operations where American military personnel faced life-threatening injuries that required immediate surgical intervention under extreme conditions. Her medical background included graduation from Johns Hopkins Medical School, residency training in trauma surgery at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, and specialized combat medicine training that had prepared her to perform life-saving surgery in field hospitals, forward operating bases, and medical facilities where resources were limited and conditions were far from ideal. Emily's combat medical experience included deployment to Iraq and Afghanistan, where she had served as the senior trauma surgeon for forward surgical teams that provided immediate surgical care for combat casualties who would have died without immediate intervention. Her expertise encompassed not just surgical techniques, but also triage procedures, mass casualty management, and the kind of decision-making under pressure that separated exceptional combat surgeons from routine medical practitioners. The decision to place Emily in an undercover assignment aboard the Ford had been made at the highest levels of Naval Medical Command and Intelligence Services, based on concerns that enemy forces were developing capabilities to conduct coordinated attacks against American naval vessels that could result in mass casualty situations requiring surgical expertise that exceeded the capabilities of standard naval medical departments. Emily's mission was to serve as a hidden medical asset who could provide advanced trauma surgery and emergency medical leadership if the Ford encountered combat situations that resulted in casualties requiring immediate surgical intervention, while maintaining her cover as a routine medical officer who would not attract attention from enemy intelligence services that might be monitoring American naval medical capabilities. The sophisticated nature of Emily's cover identity required her to actually perform general medical duties at a competent level while maintaining her surgical skills and combat medicine expertise through discrete training and continuing education that would not reveal her true qualifications or compromise her undercover assignment. For 3 years, Emily had successfully maintained her dual role without incident. She had provided excellent general medical care while monitoring the ship's medical readiness and identifying potential improvements to trauma care capabilities that could be crucial if combat operations resulted in serious casualties requiring immediate surgical intervention. Emily's position also allowed her to assess the medical department's preparedness for mass casualty situations while maintaining her surgical skills through simulation training and continuing education that appeared to be routine professional development but actually kept her ready to function as a senior trauma surgeon if circumstances required her actual medical expertise. Her daily medical practice provided ideal cover for intelligence gathering about ship operations and crew readiness while ensuring that she remained current with naval medical procedures and ship-specific protocols that could be crucial if she needed to coordinate advanced medical care during combat operations. The crisis that would ultimately expose Emily's true identity began on a Wednesday morning in late November when the Ford was conducting routine flight operations in international waters near the Strait of Hormuz, a strategically critical waterway that had been the site of increasing tensions between American naval forces and hostile regional powers that viewed American naval presence as a threat to their regional ambitions. Intelligence reports had indicated increased enemy naval activity in the area, including the deployment of submarines and fast attack craft armed with advanced torpedoes and anti-ship missiles that posed significant threats to American naval vessels operating in the confined waters of the Persian Gulf, where maneuverability was limited and defensive options were constrained. The Ford was conducting flight operations with full awareness of potential threats, but the timing and coordination of the enemy attack suggested sophisticated planning and intelligence gathering that had identified vulnerabilities in American defensive procedures and had enabled hostile forces to position attack assets without being detected by American surveillance systems. The attack began with a coordinated torpedo launch from a submarine that had approached the Ford using underwater terrain features and electronic countermeasures that had enabled it to evade detection until the last possible moment. The torpedo was an advanced waycoming weapon designed to inflict maximum damage on large naval vessels by striking vulnerable areas that could cause flooding, fires, and casualties. The torpedo impact occurred on the Ford's starboard side near the waterline, creating a massive explosion that ruptured hull plates, damaged internal systems, and caused immediate flooding that triggered general quarters alarms and damage control procedures throughout the ship. The explosion also created a pressure wave that caused injuries throughout the affected areas of the ship. Emily was conducting routine sick call in the medical department when the torpedo impact occurred, and her immediate reaction was professional and calm in ways that reflected her combat medicine training rather than the response that might be expected from a general medical officer experiencing combat for the first time. Her assessment of the situation was immediate and comprehensive, recognizing that the explosion and resulting damage would likely produce casualties requiring immediate trauma care that would test the limits of the ship's medical capabilities. Her combat medicine experience told her that the medical department needed to prepare for mass casualty procedures that would require advanced surgical intervention. As damage control teams began responding to flooding and fires caused by the torpedo impact, casualties began arriving at the medical department with injuries ranging from minor cuts and bruises to severe trauma that required immediate surgical intervention to prevent death from blood loss, internal injuries, and other life-threatening conditions. The ship's senior medical officer was among the first casualties, having been injured by debris from the explosion, leaving the medical department without senior leadership at the moment when advanced medical expertise was most critically needed. The remaining medical personnel were general practitioners and medical technicians who were qualified to provide routine care but lacked the specialized training needed for complex trauma surgery. Emily realized that the medical crisis facing the Ford required her to abandon her cover identity and utilize her actual trauma surgery expertise to provide the advanced medical care that could save the lives of sailors who would die without immediate surgical intervention. The decision to reveal her true capabilities was made in seconds as she assessed the casualties and recognized that standard naval medical procedures would be insufficient. Her transformation from general medical officer to senior trauma surgeon was immediate and complete. Emily's voice changed from the routine clinical tone she had maintained for 3 years to the authoritative command presence of a senior surgeon coordinating complex medical procedures under combat conditions. "This is Trauma Team Leader Carter taking medical command," Emily announced to the medical department personnel, using the title that identified her as a senior combat surgeon with authority to coordinate advanced trauma care. "Prepare Operating Room 1 for immediate surgery and set up triage protocols for mass casualties." The effect of Emily's announcement on the medical department was immediate and dramatic. Her obvious expertise and command authority provided exactly the medical leadership that the situation required, while her knowledge of trauma surgery and mass casualty procedures enabled her to organize medical care that would save lives that would otherwise be lost. Emily's surgical expertise proved crucial for treating casualties with complex injuries that required advanced procedures beyond the capabilities of general medical practice. Her ability to perform trauma surgery under combat conditions, coordinate multiple surgical teams, and manage medical resources during crisis situations reflected years of combat medicine experience that had prepared her for exactly this type of medical emergency. The surgical procedures that Emily performed during the hours following the torpedo attack demonstrated exceptional medical skill and combat medicine expertise that saved the lives of dozens of sailors who would have died without immediate advanced surgical intervention. Her leadership of the medical response also enabled other medical personnel to provide more effective care by following her clinical guidance and trauma protocols. The successful medical response to the Ford's combat casualties prevented what could have been a significant loss of life while demonstrating medical capabilities that enemy forces had not expected American naval vessels to possess. Emily's expertise had transformed a potential medical disaster into a manageable situation that preserved both lives and the ship's operational capabilities. The revelation of Emily's true identity as a senior trauma surgeon had immediate implications for naval medical procedures and the understanding of medical capabilities available on American naval vessels. Her successful leadership during the medical crisis proved the value of placing advanced medical expertise in positions where it could respond to threats that exceeded conventional medical capabilities. For Emily, the exposure of her cover identity marked the end of 3 years of successful undercover medical service, while demonstrating the effectiveness of maintaining advanced medical readiness even during routine naval operations that could quickly escalate into combat situations requiring sophisticated medical intervention. The medical personnel who had worked with Emily during her 3 years as a general medical officer gained new understanding of the hidden medical expertise that existed within naval medical departments, often concealed behind routine job assignments that masked the presence of elite medical professionals who were ready to provide advanced care when circumstances required their true skills and training. Emily's story became a classified example within naval medical and intelligence circles, demonstrating how medical professionals could serve in multiple roles while maintaining the specialized expertise needed to respond when their unique capabilities became essential for saving lives during combat operations that tested the limits of standard medical procedures. Commander Emily Carter had proven that the most effective medical care during naval combat often came from medical professionals who served without recognition, maintaining cover identities that concealed their expertise while remaining ready to reveal their true capabilities when the lives of sailors depended on surgical skills and medical knowledge that could make the difference between survival and death. The ship medic, who had seemed dedicated to routine medical care, had actually been one of the Navy's most experienced combat surgeons, ready to transition from general practice to advanced trauma surgery when the protection of American sailors required medical expertise and surgical capabilities that could preserve lives during combat operations that would otherwise result in preventable casualties. Trauma team leader Carter had answered the call when her expertise was needed, proving that medical legends in the Navy were often hidden in routine assignments, serving quietly until circumstances demanded the revelation of capabilities that could save lives and maintain the operational effectiveness of American naval forces facing enemies who sought to inflict maximum casualties on American personnel serving far from home in defense of American interests and allies.